Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to take a closer look at Unity Software. More importantly, their new CEO. We just had their earnings call, and this was the first time we got to hear James and how he sees the business. So, as a Unity shareholder, I want to take a closer look at my overall thoughts. Do I like the new CEO? Do I want him to continue to be the CEO? And I'll discuss a little bit more in today's episode. So, let's get started. So, we can see Unity right now is up a nice amount, up roughly 3% on the day. In the past 5 days, the stock is also up roughly 7.3%. I do believe it's pretty interesting. During the earnings call, Unity stock did tank. We can see the stock drop nice double digits to, I want to say, the very, very low 20s. But it did kind of pull back up and it's now much, much higher than it was this past week. So, like I mentioned, I do believe the big change is the CEO. For those that are not familiar, the previous CEO did kind of leave and retired the gaming industry after a lot of backlash from the new fee structures and a lot of the new stuff Unity was doing.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
So the new CEO or the interim CEO is James, and James does come with some interesting experience. So the most important experience, in my opinion, is he was the CEO of Red Hat, the company that they got acquired by IBM from January 2008 to April of 2022 when the company got acquired, and then he followed suit with some leadership positions in IBM before kind of retiring in May of 2022. So I really do enjoy that James does have this experience with Red Hat, even though it's not in the gaming industry. It does provide a few kind of foundational things that Unity needs. First, it shows that software or that SaaS-based application, that software market, right? So I do believe James has that experience there. The second thing is Unity is very dependent on its developers. I do believe Red Hat was dependent on its developers, and most software companies are. So that bodes well, especially with this kind of development fight and backlash that they got with the pricing. So those two things got me really excited about James. Two things did not get me excited. First, interim CEO, right? I don't like the uncertainty that he might not be the CEO, or just the uncertainty that there's going to be more changes in the future. Second thing that I'm not a huge fan of is he didn't really have much of a creative experience, in my opinion, right? He's worked for other big names, but in the gaming market, and I do believe with Unity, you need to have, it's weird to say, kind of like that creative mindset of where can this company grow from here. And I don't know, James, based on his experience, if he has that or not. And that's something that we would have to see during the earnings call and how he sees the growth opportunity for this company. So now what I want to do is take a closer look at some of the points that came out during the earnings call. Like I mentioned, this was the first time we got to hear from the CEO. And unfortunately, when I was reading the transcript and when I was hearing the earnings call, the way they started off the earnings kind of didn't get me off to the right foot. They started off that, hey, look, the world has changed and they're changing with it. They've taken some good first steps to bring expenses down, and they changed Unity from a money losing to a cash flow positive company in less than a year, mainly because of that acquisition of Iron Source, right? But they do mention that they are examining the company from top to bottom, ensuring that they have transformed Unity, that they transform Unity into an even more nimble and focused business. And I do believe this is what threw me off at first. It's like, hey, look, you're an interim CEO. I don't know if you're gonna be the permanent CEO. You're coming here and making all these changes, and I don't know too much about you for you to be kind of bringing all this up. So at first, I did have a little bit of a bad taste, in my opinion, right? So at first, we started off in the wrong foot, but then my kind of ideas changed because I do believe, as I heard more from him, I see that this is a guy that's more worried about long-term investors opposed to short-term price action, and that's a very great move. And the second thing is he does see the growth opportunities within this company, and that's my second reason why I like him. So there was a few questions. There are a few questions that I believe can kind of showcase the mindset of this new CEO. So there was a question that I was like, hey, James, do you see any similarities and parallelism between Unity and Red Hat? And he does mention that yes, Red Hat was an industry leading. They had an industry leading product called Red Hat enterprise Linux, but was spending tremendous amount of times doing 5 or 6 or 7 other things. And this is where he says Unity is doing, right. They have a leading product, but they're spending too much time doing too many things. And it's not just the expense that you end up losing through it, right? You're also losing management time, you're also losing attention time, you're also losing focus and clarity throughout the organization. So it is better that for you to do fewer things and to do fewer things on the things you can win at. And he does believe that Unity can win in a lot of things, and he wants to kind of trim the fat. So I like that a lot. Okay, so they haven't really broken down into specific, but the game that they're talking, I'm liking, and I'm like, okay, tell me a little bit more. So we still have to see what they're going to cut off, and that's going to take some time. They do mention that they're saying that they'll have everything cut down by the end of quarter 1, but they're kind of sandbagging that timeline. They're actually expecting it to be done a lot faster. But that brought a second question. There was a second question that came out, and it was like, hey, why did you guys not give guidance for this upcoming quarter? And this is what's creating a lot of fear for investors. And this was the best response I think any CEO can give. But before I kind of go through it, I want to say thank you guys for the support. We just hit 28,600 subs. I'm trying to hit 30,000 by the end of the year. So if you haven't, make sure to hit the thumbs up, the subscribe button. I do have a semiconductor membership with exclusive videos. Click join to learn more. Special offer at fool.com/Jose. Free newsletter at josenajarro.substack.com, and free semiconductor news at semiconductorwatch.com. So now let's go to that question. Why did the CEO not give guidance? And he pretty much said that, hey, look, we're trying to cut businesses down, right? And obviously that's going to create some form of headwinds for the revenue. And he does mention that if you cut down businesses lower than needed, revenue looks better in the short term of things, right? It's obviously better to cut down businesses over time because that revenue is only going to decline a little bit and a little bit each time. But if you do it all at once, it's just going to take that massive hit at first and then hopefully focus on growth. So he wanted to create zero incentives for anybody to slow anything down. And he kind of explained that. He's like, hey, look, if we would have given you a guidance for this upcoming quarter, and while we were cutting things down, maybe the CFO, maybe some of the management would have been like, hey, look, you know what? Instead of cutting it right now, let's wait until January 1st when the quarter ends. And like that, we can meet guidance and then we can kind of give a new guidance later on. And he didn't want that to happen, right? He didn't want to prolong this cutness of fatness. He just wanted to trim it right off the bat. So instead, he gave no guidance, and now this provides no incentives. If they see something that's fat, they're just going to cut it right now because then they don't have to worry about the guidance that they have not given. So that to me showed me one thing, that this guy is here and he's worried more about long-term mindset of the company, which therefore means he's more worried about long-term investors opposed to short-term pain on stock price and those that are only investors in the short term of things. So this got me really excited, and I do believe this was the biggest turning point for me and my thought process on the new CEO. But now the real question is he going to be the new CEO of Unity? And unfortunately, we don't have an answer just yet. There was a question about that, but he says he wants to respect the board and running the process, right? So he's not going to say if he's a candidate or if he's not a candidate. But in my opinion, he does have a vote in my eyes, in my mind as an investor. So I do hope he becomes the CEO, not only because he did such great things already, like he changed my thought process, how I mentioned earlier in this video, but I also would hate to. But I also would hate to see too many changes happening, and then you have a new CEO coming, and it's like not understanding what the new changes were about. So I don't like the inconsistency of CEOs. So I hope he does become the new CEO. Let me know what you guys think about this guy, James, in the comments below. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.